Welcome to Sacred Magic. Violet is on a quest to bring sacredness back into our everyday experiences. Anyone can have an extraordinary life when they are able to tap into their sacred magic within. Violet and her guests will be sharing their divine passions, inspirations, and stories of connecting with their sacred magic. We are so happy you have joined us today. Let's get started with your host, the magical creator of Discover Your Spiritual Gifts, Vialet Rayne.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Sacred Magic Podcast. I'm your host, Vialet B Rayne. My guest today is Lea Kayton. She's a certified Evidential Psychic Medium in Northern Colorado. She's been able to sense energy since she was a small child. At the age of 14, her psychic abilities were fully turned on with a regular occurrence of precognitive dreams, synchronicities, visions, and feeling spirit. After a few nudges from her spirit team in 2020, she finally decided to learn and develop her gift. She spent 2 years studying under Sarina Baptista, and now with the help of her team, she connects people with their loved ones. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Violet.
Oh, it's awesome. I met Lea at Body, Mind, and Spirit Expo here in Denver. We have these big expos where we all get to connect and meet. In fact, in a few weeks, we're going to be there again. They usually do it in September and April. They keep changing that spring date on us. It used to be really kind of set and they lost their locations or changed locations. So they keep moving it around trying to figure out what works best. But usually in September, we have Body, Mind, and Spirit. So Lea, how did you come to do what you do today? Because I know a lot of people have more connection than they realize. They kind of poo-poo it off or, hey, that's me or all that. So share with us your story of really stepping into what you do today.
Okay. So kind of what you said in the introduction, I was sensitive kind of since day one. I could sense energy. I was the kid where, like, if you came over for a slumber party and you used my pillow, like, I could tell something was different about the pillow, so we needed to wash it because, like, I can feel something on here. What is this? And then, like, if the energy shifted in a room, I would have to rearrange the furniture to adjust the energy. But I also grew up in a very conservative environment and my mother's religious. So like there wasn't anyone talking about energy or intuition or any of that. So it's been a process. I could sense the ghost that lived in our house and ghosts in other places that I would visit. And I bring it up to my mother and she'd be like, well, we don't believe in ghosts, so it doesn't exist. And so as a kid, that's pretty confusing. So then a lot of the time it was like me just being like, no, like I didn't actually experience that. And then at 13, it's like a flip switched in my head. And that was the first time I experienced depression and anxiety. And then at 14 is when my gifts kind of turned on more. And I feel like it's always been tied to the depression and anxiety. So it kind of started in my dreams where I had this precognitive dream about my cousin, and then it unfolded in real life. And I was very weirded out by it because I didn't know that was possible. And then just a lot of things like seeing repeating numbers. That was strange. I did not learn about that at church. So I'm like, what is this? Also, like going through, being a teenager and going through depression and anxiety at that time, it was like around 2007, which it was a very different atmosphere around mental health then than it is today. So that was also something where, like, because I was in a conservative environment, they didn't really believe it. So I didn't really have a whole lot of human support. And so I feel like that's when my spirit team kind of stepped in and the gifts kind of turned on because they knew I needed help. I had my grandfather and great grandmother who had passed over already. they would visit me in my dreams to kind of know that I had support. I would also randomly be visited by angels sitting in class, and it would feel like I was like getting a hug, because at that point, like, there's just so much happening mentally where it just never stops, and like you're just, it was so, like, I didn't know how to explain it, but then like you're receiving this hug, and it's like for 5 seconds like I felt normal again. So growing up, it was kind of, it was, I I didn't know what to think or believe, because, on Sundays I'm sitting in church and all my family are telling me this one thing to believe, but I'm experiencing something very different. So it's kind of like going back and forth of like, well, do I believe this? Do I not? And then kind of throughout college trying to block it out. But then I would say after college, my spirit team had a very different plan for me. And they just like kept cranking up all of my clairs to a point where I couldn't avoid it anymore. Where like it's like a photo would just be seared in my third eye of like an individual I've never seen in my life. Or like I'd hear people, like as I'm falling asleep, people would just tell me their names, or they'd be like messing with my comforter as I'm sleeping, and like at work, at home, no matter where I was, like spirits would be coming up to me. And like, so I got, how did it happen? I had a coworker that said that she went to a gallery reading with a medium. And like, I was still on the fence. I'm like, I don't know if I believe in this or whatever, but I decided to go to the next one with her. And like, I had never, like, I felt so at peace with it. I'm like, I understand this. And so then I went to have an individual reading with her, and she told me that I was a medium and all this stuff. And that kind of began my journey of like, okay, I need to find a teacher and develop this. And since then, I would say I'm a lot more comfortable in my skin, and like it it changed my life being able to like clear the energy where I live and protect it, because like continuously having spirits come in and out is very frightening if you don't know how to handle it. So being able to learn how to handle that has given me a lot of peace of mind.
Well, as you're talking, what I'm thinking about is over the last several years, anxiety and depression has been a huge conversation in our society.
Yeah.
What if all the young people that are coming in are just super sensitive to everything, and they're really open to a society that doesn't believe totally in all of this in a big number, and they're fighting with this chaos of, okay, people are telling me this is not real, but I'm experiencing this. And that's where the anxiety comes in, because they're not aligned, right? You're not aligned with, hey, this is happening to me. If I leaned into it a little more and had some help in understanding it, because I have young people that come in, and adults too, that are like, I'm having these experiences and I don't know what to do. And it is scaring me to be able to say, you don't have to be scared of it. Let me give you some tools that will help you, because you're in the driver's seat. If you only knew that you were in the driver's seat and you're allowed to say, I don't want foreign energies in this space. You're not allowed to come into this room. This is my sanctuary. But if you want to talk to me, you can talk to me at this time of day or in this space. You can come during this time. Don't wake me up in the middle of the night. I need my sleep. I'm a physical being, because they will wake you up to talk to you because they don't sleep. And I think they get bored and they're like, hey, Lea can get up and talk and play with me right now. Well, no, I need sleep. I'm in a physical body. Different than you. I have to be able to sleep and rest. But you can set up parameters. I had recently a student, and she goes, I'll wake up and this face is right here. And it is scary to wake up and have something right here. I said, well, you tell them to back up, that they can talk to you after you've had your coffee, after you've done this. They can show up and talk to you at that time, but they can't come in and scare you, because they don't want to scare you. You just have to set up boundaries, and you are in control. You can define how this is going to work for you, because I know when I really started connecting, they'd wake me up in the middle of the night. And at the time, I was living with an emergency room nurse. So think about that. And he was bringing all kinds of stuff home. And I had to set my house that when he came in the door, and he didn't believe in any of this, but when he came in through the door, that he actually went through a sea salt rain shower creation, because that stuff had to stay outside, because he would bring those energies home with him and he had no idea. And then they'd be like, oh, she can hear me. Where am I at? What am I doing here? What is this about? And I'd be like, I am trying to sleep. Go away. Right? So if you're having these experiences, or if your children or your teenagers are having this high level of anxiety and depression, they're just super sensitive to the energy. They need some help. They need some tools to kind of help them navigate. And it's very difficult when your friends and your family, like I can only imagine, right?
Yeah.
Because our religious beliefs really block us. And when your family's going, we don't believe in ghosts, we don't believe in that, you feel isolated and alone, because you may not believe it, but I can see it. I can feel it. I know it's here. You can tell me it's not here all day long, but I can tell you it is here. I am feeling that energy that is coming in, that is part. And so if you're experiencing this or know somebody that is, definitely find a mentor coach, because there are tools. And it's not scary. It's really a gift if you understand we've been given this ability in this lifetime so that we can navigate all those energies out there. And when you know how to utilize it, your anxiety goes down, your depression goes away, you feel more comfortable in your skin, as you said. You feel comfortable being you, because now you're truly aligned with who you really are, versus trying to be something you're not, which creates all kinds of chaos and anxiety in your body and your emotions and your mind, because it doesn't line up. When you get into that alignment, you're so much in a better place. So keep that in mind if you're listening. Get some help. Find a mentor. There's lots of them everywhere. Go have a reading. Go find somebody that does this. Find somebody you trust. Find somebody that feels right if you're a feeler, and step in and start lining up with who you are, because that's really what this is about. So you've talked about these paranormal experiences that are common for people, and they just shoo them away. So share with us, what are paranormal experiences? What are we talking about? Because those people that are listening may just kind of think, oh, that's nothing. Share with us some examples of what you're talking about so people understand that.
Well, I feel like people have experienced, like, when another human being, like, you're working on something and all of a sudden another human walks in and you can sense that another human has walked in. Well, if you're in a space and you feel like you have that same experience but no one is there, there probably is a spirit there. Because that was one of the instances where the spirit that lived in our house, he had like his favorite spot that he would stand at, and I would just stare at it. And I'm like, I know something is there because I can feel it, and it's staring at me. They also really love to play with electronics. So like my alarm clock would switch between like the digital time and the radio. The radio would just turn on and then it would switch off. They would play with the TV channels. So like I'd be watching something, the screen wouldn't change, but then the channels up top would just rapidly be going. Or like light switches would go on and off. Hearing names, like if you're by yourself and all of a sudden you hear like a female cough and like you shouldn't be hearing one because you're by yourself. Hearing, well, not hearing, I was working at Target and we were closing for the evening, and I was the only one like out front, like behind the desk, because everyone was getting their stuff in the lockers. And it felt like someone had touched me like on the back, and it's like kind of tingly, and no one was there. So I guess it kind of depends on like what clairs are developing, because you might have images that just pop in your head. This random person, their face is right there, as you were saying, like they just are staring at you. You might have words that pop in, feel feelings, like all of a sudden, like, I don't know, like feel like a heart murmur or something, but it's not yours. It could be a loved one that's nearby. There's kind of a variety of things that can happen, and you're just like, but no one else is here. Like, this doesn't make logical sense.
Well, it's funny. I always tell the story. I was home one day working, and I have people that live in my house, but in this day, everybody was at work and gone. And I heard somebody sneeze in the other room. Now, most people would freak out. Me, I say, Gesundheit, I hope you feel better soon. And I just go right back to work. I don't even, like, I confirmed it, I
Yeah.
talked to it, and then I just went back to work. Here's the thing that Lee is talking about. If you're starting to see, you will see shadows, or I'll see a being walk this way, but when you turn to look at it direct on, it's not there. It was there. Something walked by you in spirit. So if you have these certain senses, because we have this big vision, you might be looking straight ahead, but you can still see out here. You can see movement out here. When you start seeing things move at the side and then you go to look at it and it's not there, it was there. It just walked by you. That's typically something coming in. The other thing to understand is a lot of people disregard things that they hear in their mind because it's their voice. Just because it's your voice, what you consider your voice, doesn't mean it's you. Could mean something else is talking to you. Something else is giving you a message. A clear indication is if you start thinking about something that you haven't been thinking about, like you're working on a project, you're head deep into it and you're really focused, and some random thought comes in. That's not your mental chatter. That is something talking to you. And it could be an idea or guidance on what you're working on. So what I used to tell people is if you have a project or you have a challenge and you can't figure it out before you go to bed of a night, just sit and go, okay, universe, I need an answer to this challenge. Can you provide me some insider guidance? I'd really love it. And then just go to sleep. If you're a person that dreams, like Lea dreams, I dream now. I used to not dream at all. And then I interviewed a person that did dream circles and wrote books on dreams. Now I know all my dreams. I remember them all. Because she said, all you have to do is tell your consciousness that you want to know what they are, and they'll start coming in. But if you're a person that dreams, your idea or how to fix whatever you're working on may come in a dream, may come in a song that's played the next day, may come in a conversation that somebody's having in the next line at the grocery store, and you're like, that's my solution. They're going to find a way for you to hear it, see it, feel it, whatever your clair is, so that you get an answer. So I always say I work of a night in my dreams, like I'm problem solving, I'm setting up new things, I'm working through a challenge. They're helping me by doing that because I come up with ideas and solutions to things that I need. It's a great way to have support. Might not be here in the physical, but they'll definitely give you ideas. I love lights coming on. Sometimes loved ones will flicker lights, their favorite light. You might find pennies around because they'll leave coins or pennies because they can move them. And so you'll find that things get moved or put in a funny place. Feathers. A lot of people have connections to feathers. So they really align that with an angel's talking to them if it's a white feather, if it's a regular feather, somebody. I have a friend of mine that when she sees rainbows, she believes that's her dad showing up to say hi. Whatever you set that as, they will show up. Smells, your grandmother's perfume that you can remember, and all of a sudden you're smelling that means they're standing right there with you. They're letting you know that they're there. So you just need to pay attention and be aware. Awareness is key when you start connecting to your gifts.
I can I add something? I have I guess like reading other people, like sometimes they come on with expectations because they heard that their friend experienced something, so they think that they should have that same experience, like it should happen the same way. It helps to release that and just allow anything to happen, and also not like go searching for like to make something fit where it doesn't fit. Usually when it's spirit, it's kind of like a surprise, like it just like pops right at you. It's not like, oh, I need to go make this fit in a box.
That's true. That's true. Because when you release control is when they can really connect with you. When you're trying to control. So somebody comes to Lea or me, I'm a medium too, and they're like, I want to hear from blah, 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 blah. Well, that's kind and it's nice, but they have free will just like you have free will. Doesn't mean they're going to show up. Somebody else may show up because there's something important that you need to hear at this time in this moment, whatever. Also, too, families, when you do gallery readings, usually the families that are the loudest, most aggressive are going to be the ones that come forward. The ones that are really quiet and timid are not going to push their way to the front of the line. You have to think about it in that way, right? Sometimes another person's family member or someone in the family will bring somebody forward because they're quiet and they're not timid or shy. They're not willing to move forward. Just because you want to hear from Grandma Ann doesn't mean you'll hear from Grandma Ann. It might be somebody else. And you just need to be open and let go of expectations of whatever's the highest, finest, best good for me will appear and show up. That's the best way to kind of step into this. Have you found that too? Have you had people come to you that are like, I just want to hear from blah, blah, blah?
Yes. And well, I had an incident where the individual I was reading had like a very set idea of their siblings, but it hadn't really evolved since they were like child to adult. And like when I was reading spirit, they were coming through like as like who they were like as an adult and who they grew into be. And like there was a mismatch of like, but no, this is how this person was. And I'm like, but it seems like they evolved and changed, and other individuals saw this person like for who they were. But the sitter like was very set on like, no, like this is who they were at 5, and like this is who they were at the end of their life. So sometimes it's also interesting how spirit will show different aspects of like their personality and how it comes through. Like sometimes I've read like the same spirit a couple times for the same individual, but they show different sides of their personality. So if the sitter doesn't know all their sides of their personality, it can kind of get difficult at times.
It can. And, sometimes they'll come through younger, sometimes they'll come through older. You
Yeah.
just have to be open. What I have found too is if you go to a reading and the person says blah, 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 and you're like, no, I don't know that. Hold it. Don't disregard it. Just put it on a shelf to the side because sometime during the week after you leave the reading, they're going to make sure that you get confirmation on what they've said versus might be a family member that you're talking to and they go, oh yeah, Uncle Charles used to do blah, 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 blah. And you're like, I didn't know that. And that's what she told me. They're going to make sure that you get the confirmation, whether it's there or somewhere else. So I always tell people, don't disregard what somebody says. Just hold on to it because I guarantee you a week, few days, you're going to get confirmation on what was said because they're not finished. They want to make sure that you know that it was them that was there and talking to you. So sometimes I find in readings, people are like, I don't have an aunt. Okay. I'm just going to tell you, she's here. And this is what she said. I don't have an aunt. Okay. And then 20 minutes later, I have an aunt. Yeah, I know. She's talking to me. I know that you have an aunt. Just take it and hold on to it, because it may pop in later, because you're sifting through so much information when somebody's giving you a reading. It may not all click at that point, but they're going to ensure that you get that information. So you
But I do have a comment on that. I've heard other mediums talk about how sitters get amnesia because like your vibration is also raising their vibe, and then it's like there's so much happening as you're saying that like they kind of forget everything about their lives.
there is that, and they're so excited to be there. But a lot of times they're really focused on getting this piece. And
Yeah.
they don't realize, as you said earlier, that there's so much more to it. They're waiting for that. And it doesn't necessarily come through that way. They're trying to communicate the best they can. It's almost like we're speaking a foreign language and
Yeah.
they have a different language, and we're trying to connect those languages to provide the information. Right. So you have to just be open to how it's coming through and not try to filter it. Just give it as it is and see where it lands. They have a plan bigger than what we understand sometimes. And I love that. Right. We
Yes.
learn so much when we do readings. We honestly do. The longer we do this, the more we learn. There's never a point where you're not learning something and you're like, oh, that's interesting, right? They're teaching us as the readers as well as the person that's receiving the reading. You talk about being emotionally literate. What does that mean? It's been coming up in readings for you. So, what
Yeah.
is this emotionally literate mean?
Well, it kind of ties back to the beginning where we were talking about how these younger generations coming in, they're experiencing anxiety and depression. And Spirit has been having me like when families with young kids come to sit down, of emphasizing like it's important for you and your children to be able to acknowledge your emotions and process them instead of just stuffing them away, maybe as like we have throughout history, and like that it they kind of explain it like this is kind of going to be like this fundamental like baseline for these younger generations. Like you need to know this, you also need to know the basics of your intuition, because the stuff that's coming in, like these are like building blocks that they're going to build off of, and so they need to have the understanding for that now. And it feels like um that the generations before, like Gen Z, maybe halfway, like we're kind of like a bridge, like moving like society in the direction to this new chapter of like, okay, like we need to be working on this stuff because in this new chapter we have all this new stuff coming in, and we kind of need to have the basics ready so we can build off of what's coming.
Yeah, because we've ran our lives for so long by thought, mental, mind, logic, what was logically important, what we were expected to do, when really our power center is our heart and our emotions. It's a guidepost for us, and we have ignored them for so long that now it's time that we understand emotions are the critical, important piece of, does this feel right for me? Does this relationship feel right? I always tell people, have you ever met someone in a crowd and everybody seems to love them, and you get this sense of, ooh, something's just not quite aligned, but everybody loves them, so logically it makes sense that I should have a relationship with them, but it doesn't feel right, and we don't honor that, and then we step in, and then later on we're like, oh, I should have paid attention, right? Because it's a guidepost for us if we really pay attention. I love the fact that you're also talking a lot about women taking charge in their lives, something that's been coming up a lot because we're moving from that masculine generation where it was all that focus into this new reality. Share a little bit what you're seeing in that area as well.
So with that, I've had in readings where it's like a light bulb has gone off on like people that identify as female or like a traditional role, and realizing that they don't have to be the caretaker for everyone and sacrifice their lives for everyone, and like boundaries are a thing. And I've noticed that they're questioning more about whether or not, like, is this a two-way street in a relationship, whether romantic, professional, friendship, like, are they giving as much as I'm giving? Or am I just like being soul sucked by everyone in my life? Like, I get to have a life as well and be an individual. So it's really exciting to see how that's shifting. And then I think that also kind of affects like the masculine, and how there's kind of an identity crisis on that side. And like, because the female role is changing and they kind of have, I don't know, it's like kind of like yin and yang. And like, so now the changes are happening on that side. Like, what is their identity?
It is, because there's a big shift happening right now. I mean, it's happening in our politics, it's happening in our banking, it's happening in our fight, it's happening everywhere. It's almost like we have to break it down to rebuild it in a certain way. So there's all this chaos because we've done things a certain way for so long, and that's not working anymore. So we have to crumble it almost to figure out what will work now, because all that's shifting. It's shifting in everything that we do. Like COVID was the opening door to something so totally different. I don't know about you that are listening, but some of my favorite restaurants are gone. My favorite ways that I love to shop no longer exist anymore. We shop differently. We do everything so differently than we did before COVID. And when we went through COVID, we were told things are going to be completely different. We're like, no, no. We kept going back trying to put that square peg in that round hole, and it just doesn't work anymore. And so now we're all trying to figure out what does work, what do we do going forward? Because tons of things have changed in how we've done everything. And if you fight that change, it just makes it harder. It's almost like we're required to surrender to what is now and quit looking about what was or what will be, but what is now, right, in our world.
Well, another fun thing is watching a movie or a TV series that was before COVID, and then seeing like all the things like you can't say or do now that you could 7 years ago.
It
Like,
is. It is strange, right? Because it's
yeah.
completely different. Everything. You know, how our shows were set up, what they were focused on and what they're focused on today. Everything has literally changed. It's almost like it's flipping, right? On how we're seeing things. And we have an aspect in this, and we contribute to that through our own emotions, our own mindset. So just keep that in mind, that even if you're an individual, you can send love and light and peace out into the world always, energetically, because we all make a difference in our own way. So keep that in mind as we move through. So Lea, share with us some of the things that you offer to clients. We'll have your website along the bottom so that people can connect, but give us some aspects of some of the things that you have to offer.
Okay. Well, I do psychic mediumship readings. Also just a plain psychic reading, because I know sometimes mediumship can make people uncomfortable. So just offering a psychic reading. I also do where you can submit 3 questions. It's an oracle reading, and then I'll email it to you, what spirit has to say to those 3 questions. I will be offering 30% off starting October 1st to the end of December. My website is mediumladytemperance.com, and my Instagram is Lady Temperance.
Beautiful. I love that name. How did you come up with Lady Temperance? I'm curious.
I wanted something that I could kind of play off of and could get like creative juice from. I also wanted balance has been a very big thing in my life, And when I was going through names, like Googling names, balance had been very overused in names. So I wanted to find something that kind of referenced balance. And I came across the temperance card. And then also my sun's sign is Sagittarius, and temperance in tarot represents Sagittarius. So like, well, this works great.
I love that. I always tell people balance is impossible to get. It's called about flow. If you think about it in flow, it's never the same from one minute to the other. But if you can relax in the waves and allow the flow to move, then you get balance there, because then you don't have the highs and the lows. But keeping something the same way all the time is impossible, because we're constantly impacted by choices, energies around us, cycles, movement. And so if you can just understand flow, I always tell people that's my word for the year, because balance, I can't achieve it, but my guide said flow is your word for 2025, and I'm like, but that can be big flow, could be little flow. Are you sure flow? Can we debate? And they're like, nope, flow. And I'm like, okay, flow it is. So I am surrendering to the flow.
I love it.
Right? It has been awesome being able to chat with you today. So thank you for taking the time today.
Well, thank you. I've had a fun time. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I will see you in a couple weeks, I'm sure. So that'll be fun. For those listening, thank you so much for taking the time to listen. I hope you'll follow, like, and comment on your favorite channels. I wish you a sacred and magical week, and I look forward to seeing you soon on one of our future episodes. Have a great week.
Thank you for joining us. To find out more about Vialet, head over to discoveryourspiritualgifts.com. You can also send a personal message to Vialet through email, violet@discoveryourspiritualgifts.com. If you love the show, subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or Spotify. Until next time, remember, we are meant to have abundant and joyful lives. We hope to see you soon at Discover Your Spiritual Gifts.